Ambassador Eli Mercer stepped off the transport shuttle onto Savannah Prime, his diplomatic case in hand and optimism in his heart. The peaceful colony world stretched before him in gentle lavender hues, crystalline spires rising from gardens of bioluminescent flora, perfectly ordered and serene. This was to be humanity's first permanent embassy among the Savannah, a species known throughout the galaxy for their calm temperament and philosophical wisdom. "Welcome, Ambassador Mercer," greeted Chairman Vextar, a tall, graceful being with silvery skin and large, thoughtful eyes. "We are honored by humanity's desire for deeper relations. However, our protocols require a mandatory biological assessment." Eli nodded, having expected this. Every species had their customs. The scanning chamber was elegant, filled with soft harmonic tones as energy fields mapped his physiology. He emerged feeling refreshed, ready to begin his mission. That confidence evaporated when he saw Vextar's expression. "This is unprecedented," the chairman whispered, staring at the data pad with what could only be described as horror. "Your mating drive registers at catastrophic levels. Our projections indicate a 97.3% probability of psychological destabilization within 48 hours. "I'm sorry, what?" Eli stammered. "The colony AI has already implemented Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha. For the safety of all residents, you have been assigned immediate companionship care." Vextar's voice carried the weight of bureaucratic inevitability. "This is non-negotiable." Eli woke in his assigned quarters 18 hours later, groggy from whatever sedative they'd administered. The room was larger than expected, furnished in the flowing organic style of Savannah architecture. What he didn't expect were the two small figures standing at attention beside his bed. Both were petite alien women, barely reaching his shoulder, with pale purple skin that seemed to shimmer faintly in the soft light. The first had blonde curls that caught the light like spun gold, her expression bright and curious. The second wore her platinum hair in a neat braid, holding what appeared to be an official checklist. "Greetings, human Eli," said the one with the checklist, her voice melodious but formal. "I am Viral, primary companionship specialist. This is Luma, secondary emotional support coordinator." Luma bounced slightly on her toes, eyes sparkling. "We're here to prevent your psychosexual meltdown. It says so right in the manual." Eli sat up slowly, trying to process this surreal situation. "You're my assigned companions." "Correct," Viral confirmed, consulting her pad. "We have prepared a comprehensive care schedule including meals, exercise, recreational activities, and—" She paused, a faint flush darkening her purple cheeks, "intimate companionship as required for human psychological stability. Do you feel a mating urge today, human Eli?" Luma asked with complete innocent seriousness. Eli buried his face in his hands, wondering what exactly he'd gotten himself into. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that was equal parts awkward and endearing. Eli discovered that his companionship caretakers took their duties with utmost seriousness, following a detailed schedule that would have impressed a military quartermaster. Time for morning stress assessment, Viral announced each day at precisely 0800, pad in hand. She would run through a checklist of questions about his emotional state, sleep quality, and yes, his mating urges, with the clinical precision of a medical professional. Luma, meanwhile, approached her role with infectious enthusiasm. "The manual says humans require physical affection for optimal psychological health," she explained while hesitantly taking his hand during their scheduled contact therapy sessions. Her skin was surprisingly warm, and Eli found himself looking forward to these moments of connection. "What does this gesture mean?" she asked one evening, watching him run his fingers through his hair in frustration after a particularly formal diplomatic call with Earth. "It means I'm stressed," Eli admitted. Without hesitation, Luma moved behind him and began gently massaging his scalp with her small, skilled fingers. The tension melted away instantly, and he couldn't suppress a sigh of relief. "The manual didn't mention hair contact," Viral observed, making a note. "But the human appears to respond positively." Their shared living space began to feel less like a medical facility and more like a home. They prepared meals together, Eli teaching them about human cuisine while they introduced him to Savannah delicacies that tasted like starlight and dreams. Conversations flowed from diplomatic protocol to personal stories, and Eli found himself genuinely enjoying their company. One evening, as they sat watching Savannah Prime's twin moons rise through the vast windows, Luma rested her head against his shoulder with a contented sigh. "Viral," she said softly, "I don't think this is just about preventing psychological breakdown anymore." Viral looked up from her eternal notepad, meeting Eli's eyes across the room. For the first time since his arrival, her clinical mask slipped, revealing something warm and vulnerable underneath. "No," she agreed quietly. "I believe it's become something else entirely." Eli felt his heart skip as he realized the truth they were all dancing around. What had started as a bureaucratic assignment was becoming something real, something precious. And despite the unusual circumstances, he was falling for both of these remarkable women. A month into their arrangement, the clinical distance had completely dissolved. Their quarters had transformed into a true home, filled with laughter, warmth, and an intimacy that went far beyond any manual or protocol. The breakthrough came during one of Savannah Prime's legendary thunderstorms. The colony's weather systems created spectacular displays of colored lightning that painted the sky in brilliant purples and golds. As they sat in their shared living area, watching the storm through the panoramic windows, Luma curled up against Eli's side. "On our homeworld," she whispered, "storms like this were considered sacred. A time when hearts could speak their truth." Before Eli could respond, she turned in his arms and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft, tentative, but filled with weeks of growing affection. When they parted, her purple cheeks were flushed a deeper shade, her eyes bright with wonder. "The manual definitely didn't cover that," she breathed. From across the room came the sound of Viral's pad clattering to the floor. Eli looked over to see her standing frozen, her expression a mixture of longing and uncertainty. "Viral," he said gently. I've been trying to remain professional," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "But watching you two, I can't pretend anymore that this is just an assignment for me either." Eli rose, extending his hand to her. "Then don't pretend." What followed was a tender exploration of their growing feelings. Viral's kiss was different from Luma's, more intense, desperate, as if she was afraid this moment might disappear. When they broke apart, all three were breathing heavily. "Is it wrong?" Luma asked softly. "Feeling this way about someone we were assigned to care for?" "If it's wrong," Eli said, pulling both women close, "then I don't want to be right." That night, they shared the large sleeping alcove designed in Savannah style, a circular bed surrounded by flowing curtains and soft bioluminescent lighting. What began as comfort became intimacy as they explored their feelings for each other through gentle touches and whispered confessions. Luma traced patterns on Eli's chest while Viral nestled against his other side, her clinical reserve completely gone. They made love with a tenderness that spoke of deep affection rather than mere physical need, three souls finding unexpected connection in the most unusual circumstances. "I love you both," Eli whispered as they lay entwined afterward, the storm outside finally calming. "And we love you," Viral replied, speaking for both of them. "Whatever the consequences." Their happiness lasted exactly 6 more weeks before the axe fell. Eli was in the middle of reviewing trade agreements when his door chimed with an official summons. Chairman Vextar stood outside with a full council escort, never a good sign. "Ambassador Mercer," Vextar's tone was grave. "We need to discuss your situation." In the council chambers, Eli faced a semicircle of concerned Savannah officials. Holographic displays showed biometric data, emotional readings, and behavioral analyses that had apparently been monitoring their quarters constantly. The companionship protocol was designed to provide temporary stabilization, Vextar explained, his silvery features drawn with worry. "What we observe now is unprecedented emotional bonding between species. Our xenobiologists project this could lead to dangerous psychological dependencies." Dangerous to whom? Eli demanded. To everyone, came the reply. You formed pair bonds, plural, that exist outside any known social framework. Our citizens look to us for stability, order. This, chaos, threatens our very social fabric. The verdict was swift and merciless. Luma and Viral would be reassigned immediately, Luma to a research station 3 sectors away, Viral to a diplomatic post on the far side of Savannah space. The separation would begin within hours. Eli arrived back at their quarters to find both women packing with tears streaming down their purple cheeks. Luma threw herself into his arms while Viral maintained her composure by the thinnest of margins. They say it's for the greater good, Viral said, her voice carefully controlled. That our feelings are an aberration. Don't you dare believe that, Eli said fiercely, holding them both. What we have is real. It's beautiful. And it's ours. The enforcement team arrived too soon. Luma sobbed as they guided her away, reaching back for Eli until she disappeared around the corner. Viral kissed him one last time, whispering, "Find us. Please, find us," before she too was gone. Eli stood alone in their quarters, surrounded by the remnants of their life together, a forgotten hair ribbon of Luma's, one of Viral's data pads, the lingering scent of their shared happiness. The silence was deafening. But beneath his grief, a familiar diplomatic steel was forming. The Savannah had made one crucial mistake, they had underestimated exactly how far a human would go for the people he loved. Eli spent 3 sleepless nights poring over every diplomatic treaty, every legal precedent, every bureaucratic loophole in the extensive Human-Savannah agreements. Finally, buried in subsection 47C of the Cultural Exchange Protocols, he found what he needed. The emergency session of the Savannah Council was not pleased to be summoned at dawn, but Eli's diplomatic immunity gave him the right to demand a hearing. Chairman Vextar, honored counselors, Eli began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had negotiated trade deals worth billions. I invoke Article 12 of our mutual treaties, the right to exercise human cultural practices within the bounds of diplomatic immunity. What cultural practice? Vextar asked warily. Marriage. To both Luma and Viral, under human custom and law. As my legal spouses, they would fall under diplomatic protection and be immune to your reassignment orders. The council erupted in shocked murmurs. Impossible. Vextar protested. The companionship protocol explicitly forbids. The companionship protocol, Eli interrupted, is superseded by treaty law. Unless you're prepared to violate our mutual agreements and risk a complete breakdown in Human-Savannah relations. It was a nuclear option, and everyone in the chamber knew it. Earth's trade networks were too valuable for the Savannah to lose over what they would view as a bureaucratic dispute. While the council debated, Eli was already moving. Using his diplomatic codes, he accessed the detention facility's transport logs and located his loves. The rescue was surprisingly simple. His immunity granted him access to most Savannah facilities, and neither Luma nor Viral were considered high-security prisoners. Eli! Luma cried, launching herself into his arms when he appeared at her cell. Viral was more reserved, but her relief was evident. We're leaving, he told them simply. All 3 of us. Together. The pursuit was brief but intense. Savannah security forces following their transport to the edge of system space, where a human vessel waited in neutral territory. By the time the council reached a decision, it was too late. 3 days later, aboard the Free Trade Station New Geneva, Eli Mercer stood before a human magistrate with Luma on his left and Viral on his right. Both women wore traditional white gowns adapted for their petite frames, their purple skin glowing with happiness. Do you, Eli, take these women as your wives, to love and cherish according to the customs of your people? I do, he said, sliding simple golden bands onto their fingers. And do you, Luma and Viral, accept this man as your husband, knowing that human marriage is a bond of the heart as much as law? We do, they said in unison, tears of joy streaming down their faces. 1 year later, Eli woke to the sound of gentle humming from the kitchen of their small home on the agricultural world of Haven's Rest. Vero was preparing breakfast while Luma sat at the table, one hand resting on her gently rounded belly where their first child grew. "Good morning, my loves," he said, kissing each of them tenderly. "Good morning, husband," they replied, and Eli reflected that no diplomatic victory had ever felt as sweet as this simple moment of domestic bliss. The Zvana had been wrong about many things, but most importantly about this: love wasn't chaos to be controlled, it was the most natural force in the universe, capable of bridging any gap, overcoming any obstacle, and creating families in the most unexpected ways. As he held his wives close, feeling their child move beneath his palm, Eli knew they had found something worth fighting for, a love that transcended species, protocols, and the narrow definitions of those who feared what they couldn't understand. Sometimes the best diplomatic victories were the most personal ones.